Okay, let me first introduce myself. I am Teacher Marvin, and for today, I'll be having a short demonstration about a story. So let me show you my screen. Okay, so we will be talking about the elements of a short story. So we are very familiar with about stories and novels, short stories written by different people. But for today, we're just going to compact the elements of a short story in a very short and simple and precise manner. So let's talk about a story first. Let's have a background about a story. What is a story? Actually, a story is an account of imaginary, something that's not real, or it could be real people and events told for entertainment. So most people, or many of us, we tend to read the story because we want to be entertained. Some of the stories could be real. It could be a story of a person or of an animal. And also, the other name for story is also synonymous to a tale, a narrative, or an account. Now, how can a written story be effective? Of course, if you're a writer, you should convey an important meaning about the story. So for this situation, for a story to be effective, you should convey simple yet important meaning. You should give the importance of a story. And of course, it should be relatable and definitely it should possess five important elements. And what are those elements? The first one is plot, followed by character, third, setting, fourth, conflict, and the fifth is the theme. So in this demonstration, we will be discussing these elements. How are they being used in a short story, and how are these elements important? First, we talk about the plot. What is a plot? If we talk about the plot, it's a series. Of course, if you're gonna watch or a movie, there's a beginning, a middle, and the end. So it's the same thing with the plot. There is a series of events and character actions that relate to the central conflict. So there is a beginning. A plot is like the beginning of a story, how it should start, the middle, and sometimes the people call it like the climax of a story, and the last is the how where the story ends. Now, also in a plot, here you can see the cause and effect. It's like a chain, cause and effect chain of events that has beginning point, like what I said a while ago, climax, and the another name for the end of the story is the resolution. Now, a plot or a story rather cannot be completed without a character or characters. Now, for the characters, it could be the people, animals. Actually, in a story which talk about animals, we call them as fables. And I think we're familiar with some of the stories that has animals like the tortoise and the hare, the golden duck, the lion and the mouse, those kind of animal stories. Also, there are other stories or other characters that talks about the other figures. Some figures could be inanimate, but since it's a story, then there will be like this inanimate objects could be able to speak. Like in the Beauty of the Beast story, some of the kitchenwares they're speaking. Now, in the character is also important because they have a dialogue or a conversation, and because of this conversation, you could be able to move the story along. Without characters, don't forget that a story can't exist, definitely. Without characters, how can the story, what would be the flow? Okay? If there will be no characters. And another important thing, first is the plot, followed by character. The third is the setting from the word itself. Setting. It talks about the place. It not only the place but also the time, the environment in which the characters and events of the story are based. Furthermore, you can use descriptions. If you are going to write a short story, you can use descriptions of a landscape, scenery, buildings, seasons, or weather to provide a strong sense of setting. Let's take, for example, if your short story is about the hare and the tortoise, the setting could be like they are in a marathon, a place where they could run. Like now, if you want to use a story about the sun and the wind, when a story about they're competing, who's stronger and who is weaker, then you could have a story like there is a story of a man walking, then they're talking like in the heat of the sun because of the sun, or it's like a strong chilly wind, something like that. Okay, followed by conflict. What comes into your mind if you're gonna hear the word conflict? Maybe an argument, right? Maybe you're gonna hear a conflict like some this agreement. Now, a conflict is a struggle. Okay, what kind of struggle are we talking about? The struggle between two people or things in a short story. Sometimes here you can see the protagonist and the antagonist. So what do you mean by that? Actually, a protagonist is the main character, and the actually, it's like anti the main character. Actually, a story cannot be an effective story without a conflict, without the antagonist. And usually, the main character or the protagonist is usually on the side of the central conflict. It is where you can see the whole story evolving and revolving. And more so, the conflict is the heartbeat. It's the heartbeat of the heartbeat of the story. So your story needs to have a defining conflict to impact the reader's mind. You should give them the idea. You should give them the visualization of what's happening. And you, as an effective author, you can do that if you can convey, you can impart the messages that you want your readers to know. That even though they're just reading it, there's this story playing in their mind. And last but not the least about the LMS is the theme. What is a theme? It's the moral of the story. You're reading a story, you should know why am I reading it? Not only what am I reading, but also why am I reading this? It can be the subject of the story or an idea that runs through it. It is simply the message that you want to convey from the writer to the reader throughout the story. What do you want them to know? What do you want them to learn? It's the central idea or the belief in a short story. Okay, let's have a short summary. So we were talking about a story. What is a story? It's an account, a narrative, okay, a tale. Could be real, could be imaginary, it could be a myth, it could be fictitious, and it tells something. It's a story. And for a story to be a story, okay, you should have a plot, character, setting, conflict, and theme. Theme rather. So that's it for today's demonstration. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. And again, my name is Marvin. Bye.